I'm with Mike OBrien for Hope from the Holy Land. Now, Mike, what is Hope for the Holy Land?
Hello, Paul. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me and for speaking to me today. I'm Mike OBrien. I'm part of a movement which sometimes we call Pilgrims of Hope for the Holy Land, and sometimes it's just Hope for the Holy Land. It depends on we're finding our way still. But what it is, it started last year, more or less a year ago, just with me and a small group of friends who were concerned about the situation in Israel Palestine and who were concerned about the more we heard about Christians living in the West Bank and how they were finding life increasingly difficult during the last 2 years because of for a variety of reasons, obviously, restrictions on movement and etc., but also primarily because of the lack of pilgrims and how it had been. Thinking about it for even like a couple of minutes, I realized that, of course, it must be terrible because for the best part of 2,000 years, the lifeblood of these communities has been, at least in part, it's been pilgrims and visitors. So there was that, coupled with the ongoing conflict and an increasing feeling of powerlessness and just general sort of, I was thinking, either I'm going to decouple from watching anything or hearing anything more about life in the Holy Land, or I will need to do something positive because it's becoming increasingly negative in my own mind. So I decided what happened then is I went to a prayer meeting in the church of my childhood in Liverpool, in Belvale, for a prayer evening for Gaza, and they had this thing called the 50 Faces of the Holy Land project for people of every ethnicity and religious background. They had their pictures and the story, and the whole evening was incredibly moving. And I met a couple of people that helped, and I made the decision then on the 6th of November 2024 that I needed to go to Jerusalem and Bethlehem because all my life I'd wanted to go. I've never been. And I thought if I wait longer, if I wait for peace, whatever peace will look like, I could be a very old man, before that happens. And so I organized myself, but with the help of Friends of the Holy Land, Chris Mundy from Friends of the Holy Land. And I went on the 14th of January. I got to Jerusalem and I spent time in Jerusalem and also in Bethlehem. And because of the situation, because it was so quiet and so very few people, I had the chance to speak with people who wanted to speak wherever I went. I was the pilgrim and people wanted to talk. And so I had time to sit down and record and chat for most of the days. And it was a fascinating time. And I made some really good connections and friends who I still keep in touch with now. And then when I came home, I was talking with Friends of the Holy Land and I was thinking about the best way that the average lay person in Christianity from any denomination, what they could do in this situation, because I think the feeling of powerlessness when we look at what's been going on at the conflict in general, I mean, not just overall, it's quite difficult. It's a very charged subject. It's a very politicized subject. And I was thinking, yeah, but one thing which doesn't appear to me to be political, which is also going to benefit everybody from what I can see, is if there is a strong Christian population within the Holy Land. Because I've always been fascinated by the history of that community and the place. And I know for such a small minority, I know that it's a disproportionate amount of help and social capital that they bring. And also, how to put this, I think there are people on both sides of the divide who have an agenda to make this a religious war, or to paint this as a religious war, or at least a war of Islamism versus the West. And the long existence for 2,000 years of the Christian Palestinians or other Christian groups is proof that this isn't. And I think that is important. And I think that the non-violent resistance that's being espoused by many of the Christians should be spoken about, because it's far too easy for people to regard, in our country, in Britain, to look at this situation and regard both sides as irredeemably, that this is it's never going to end with anything good. And, there's nobody there who's a voice of reason or voice of peace. And I know that that's not true. I met Israelis, I met Jewish people, Muslim people, Christian people, and people who would regard themselves as avowed atheists. I spoke to people in Mea Shearim, I spoke to people in the Old City, I spoke to people in East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, and in Bethlehem. And still, I've only scratched the surface of life there. But I know that there are such a wide range of views, and that the vast majority of people understand that some degree of cooperative coexistence and peace is what's going to happen eventually, and is what's going to be, is what's going to need to happen. I also have an Israeli brother-in-law who's been in Liverpool for a long time, and he has family there. And I know, obviously, that we were speaking with him. I know that there's a variety of different views on what's been happening, and I think that it's far too easy for people in the West, in this country, who just maybe catch headlines now and then to dehumanize both sides and think this is just a weird conflict that doesn't affect me, and it's one of those things that is I can just forget about this because it's not important, or well, no, not important. It's just that I can't really change it. So we knew that people could, and we knew that the one unequivocally positive and good thing that could be done would be to visit, to go. One, because they'd have a better idea. Two, because encounter is where the magic happens. It's where people humanize each other. But also because it's a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And I haven't emphasized that enough sometimes when I've been speaking with people, because it's so difficult to describe, but it was a life-changing experience. It was an amazing experience. It was like, from a spiritual angle, it would be difficult to explain it. Maybe writing it would be easier, but I think that the experience of Gethsemane, the Mount of Olives, crossing the Kidron Valley at night and going into the Old Town and then walking to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, seeing where Jesus Christ was born, seeing where Jesus Christ, walking through the streets of Bethlehem, it's impossible not to be moved. And it's impossible not to be moved to prayer if you're of that bent. And I think that the coupling of some degree of fellowship, social, some supportive element, plus the spiritual aspect of pilgrimage, it will change the pilgrim far more than it changes the communities that they visit. We'll come back home, if I'm anything to go by, come back home very charged, very filled with the Holy Spirit, and very desirous to, not just regarding the Holy Land, but just in general, a new awakening of faith and the social aspects of faith, I suppose. So it's a very big answer to a very short question, I suppose. One last thing to it as well is some people do say, for various reasons, and not just with me, why that part of the world? Why are you interested? Isn't that a bit strange that you're sort of... And I thought about this, and I thought, I've been brought up as... I was brought up Roman Catholic and brought up Christian. And I was talking with my sister about it. I was thinking, I knew there was a place called Bethlehem before I knew there was a place called Liverpool. I knew there was a place called Bethlehem before I knew there was a place called London. And the words Golgotha, Gabbatha, Ephraim, Bethany, these have been in my mind since before I could even speak. Because every Good Friday, during the church's year, I would hear this. But during the time of the Passion, in our churches, what would happen is the congregation would we would be involved in the Passion. So we would speak parts of the gospel. The priest would speak some, and then another player would speak another. And I remember saying, from the earliest of recollections, saying things, and I was thinking, well, then it dawned on me that these are real places. This is not a story. These are real places. And since that day, I wanted to go. So I suppose that's why I feel the connection that I feel. And I'm guessing I'm not the only one in this conversation who feels that connection either, because you're there. So there you go.
So you're wanting to encourage people to come to the Holy Land, and you're wanting to encourage the people that go, but also encourage the people that are here in the land as well, and meet both sides of the divide.
Definitely, of course. When I was there, I did get to meet people in Israel, Palestine, and Jerusalem, and Bethlehem, and I found that speaking with them, that the idea really came from them. That was like, look, you're obviously you're here, you care about this place. You want to do something good? Tell everybody that you know to come back, because if the economy is working again, it's always going to be better for everybody. That's the first thing to note. People, it's going to be better. But also, the Christian population in general, they were saying, like, we're not going to survive another year of this, and we're leaving, and I don't know how much of it was hyperbole, but I think that looking at the statistics, it has been true for many people. So, yeah, it is to encourage, to support, both economically, but also to show that, the world has not forgotten, specifically about the Christian community, I think, because they are a group that you don't hear from. They are a group that's been and are essential to society and life within that region. And they have suffered, other than the people in Gaza and the people in southern Israel, obviously, they have suffered more probably because of the lack of pilgrims than anybody else. And also, though, from the other side, people going, as I said, I think pilgrimage in general, going anywhere on a spiritual journey is formative, is exciting, is great. Going to Jerusalem and going to Bethlehem. And I would like to go further into the West Bank, Jericho, and hopefully in the end to Tebey, and up to Birkin, the Church of the Ten Lepers, up to Jenin. I've met people from Salt of the Earth initiative for the Northern West Bank Christians, as well as the Bethlehem group, or the Bethlehem, some representatives of the Bethlehem population. But I think that for interested Christians within the UK, I think that it would be a really faith-affirming thing to do, a journey that would be that you remember for the rest of your life, and would also, I suppose, make you more on fire with the Holy Spirit, as the best way that I could put it.
You must feel really sad then that many Christians are leaving this area.
Incredibly, more and more. This was the catalyst. This was one of the things that was happening at that prayer meeting, and it was a prayer meeting for Gaza. But I don't know, you may know somebody called Canon Mark Madden, he's a priest who's from Liverpool, and he works in Liverpool, but he's also part of the LPJ, the Patriarchate, and he spends a lot of time in Jerusalem, but also we'd spend time in Gaza and in Bethlehem and Tebey. And it was what he was saying. And I was thinking, it would be a tragedy. It's unthinkable that the oldest Christian community in the world could potentially vanish from view without the world even acknowledging that that's going on, because we don't know, because lots of people don't even know that there are such a thing as Christians there. They just, they don't get that. They don't. And we're not talking like, people who are otherwise fairly clued up on the world. So, yeah, I find it desperately sad. And speaking with people, especially Bethlehem, I'll be honest with you, it was Bethlehem that I found. Bethlehem was a brilliant day, but it was difficult. But speaking with people in the restaurants and in Manger Square, and there was an air of desperation that I was thinking, we have to. There are so many people, if they knew, and they knew how easy it was to get there, they would be there, because it's a win-win. Everybody wins. I mean, it's not like it's not a big sacrifice on the part of the pilgrim. In fact, it's one of the best trips you're ever going to make. And there are so many people who would do it if people didn't realize that you could. That was the other thing. And that was why I went. That's why I went on my own, because I was thinking, there's no way I can encourage people to do this, because that was one of the thoughts already. But then after I'd been, it was even more so. But I was thinking, there's no way I can encourage people to do this if I haven't been, because quite understandably, people will say, well, yeah, but it's dangerous. But yes, it's you can't go there because you won't get insurance. And none of that's true. None of that was true in January of last year, and it's not true now. I got insurance through the post office, just the normal 50-year-old man standard, there you go, there's your insurance, because Bethlehem all the way through to Jericho within the West Bank, you can go to within Israel proper, anywhere, within East Jerusalem, anywhere. There was just some limitations, and I think they're still in place when it comes to around Jenin, and there's obviously limitations within the Gaza envelope and Gaza itself. But other than that, I didn't get to the Galilee. And that's one thing which obviously, I mean, my intention is to be back there in 2026. One of our group, my nephew, is going to be there in February, in probably just over a month. And I've told him there are a couple of people he's going to look up for me in Bethlehem and in Jerusalem. But yeah, so yes, that's the answer. If I go off on tangents, it's because it's a topic which really does interest me a lot, as you can tell.
Now, you were in the Holy Land before the ceasefire began. Has the mood changed since the ceasefire with the friends that you talked to?
When I was there, the last day I was there was the day that the ceasefire was put in place. And in the 24 hours before, and then on that last day before I left to go to the airport the day after, there was a real feeling I was in Jerusalem then, and there was a real feeling of optimism. And it was for me but obviously with the people in the street, the people I talked to. I remember I would go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre every day. And I came out of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and I thought, what's going on here? It was like there was a crowd, and then there was a face that I recognised from like television, the church magazines, etc. And it was Cardinal Peter Balla, and he was there being interviewed and happy, smiling. And that was the interview where he said, like, what I have then put on my website: come back, it's safe, we're waiting for you, we need you, come back. Come back as pilgrims of hope and pilgrims of solidarity. And I saw he acknowledged me and said hello, and I said hello, and I walked off, and I was feeling so happy. And then there was a place where there was a shop that I used to go in every day to talk to them, to the gentlemen there, and I was talking with them, and it was a real feeling of that. And then, as this last year has been obviously tragic, just horrible. But as it became apparent, for all manner of reasons, that the ceasefire wasn't lasting and then didn't last. And then during the summer, as summer wore on and things were getting worse and worse, and I was still in touch with people, and the feeling of pessimism was bad. And I think people have left between then, when I was there, and today. And then relative peace and hope, and I think now more optimism. And as Christmas approached, I could see that Bethlehem was like, obviously I keep on top of what's going on with this now, and I could see that new life was being breathed into the situation again. And I was thinking, this is fabulous. And then to see the lights go on all around the West Bank and in East Jerusalem and Jerusalem itself, and that was amazing. It was such a feeling it was such a good feeling. And in the run up to Christmas as well, I'd been in touch with a gentleman I'd mentioned called Iskander Khoury, who is like the principal of a school in Beit Sahor called the Holy Child Program, which it's run by an order of Franciscans, Catholics, but it takes in children who are suffering with symptoms of PTSD, who can't be in mainstream education because of trauma, usually secondary to the conflict. And this year they've been able to accept, I think 4 children from Gaza whose family are being killed. And I've been in touch with him, and we came up with an idea of kids in his school would draw pictures of the nativity scenes and the Christmas scenes. He would send them to me, kids from the local school here, my sister's kids and various family members, etc. They would add their own pictures, and we'd make up Christmas cards, and then we would sell them, and the money would go to the Holy Child Program. And being able to even just do that, and we didn't raise a great deal, but the enjoyment of that, and getting, and the kids being involved this aside as well, and other people asking then what's this and why, and it's been that sort of level of optimism again has been really good. It's been really good, and I think it's lasting now. And I hope that, as you said today, I've forgotten that it was the Orthodox Christmas celebrations. I'm interested to see how it goes today, and hopefully the optimism will continue.
What is your prayer for the future of the Holy Land?
It is that God will open the hearts of not just the people who live there, but the people around the world whose decisions inevitably have an effect. And I think that one way in which we can live that prayer, as well as praying that prayer, is through encounter, whether that's face to face on the ground, or whether that's in an online community like mine or many others. That is, I think the prayer would be that people open their hearts and see the combatants, see the populations as people like themselves, as people who, like their own children, like their own fathers, mothers, etc. I don't just mean people within the Holy Land. I mean, even more especially people outside of, because it may be difficult for you to, if you haven't been back here for a while, there's a variety of different reactions, some good, some very negative, and it's a polarizing topic, and I'm thinking it doesn't have to be. And that would be my prayer. My prayer would be that people would look for true encounter with Christ himself and with other people who are living the situation, and then they will know. Then they can make decisions if they need to or not. Don't make a decision. Just ask, what is it that I can do to help? What do you think I can do in the West to help your situation? Just ask. That's what I would pray for.
Well, it's so great that your organization has been born out of what's happened in the war, and that you're wanting to connect people together, people from the UK to here in the Holy Land. What's your website and social media page for people who'd like to know more about the work that you do and perhaps connect with you?
Yes, and I would love, I hope that they do. Facebook page if they look for Pilgrims of Hope for the Holy Land. And also the website is www.pilgrimsofhope.co.uk. If you were to Google Pilgrims of Hope for the Holy Land or even Hope for the Holy Land now, you would find us pretty quickly. And on Facebook, again, Pilgrims of Hope for the Holy Land or Hope for the Holy Land, and you'll find us easily. I'm surprised. One thing which is really gratifying is just how quickly and how widely people are interested, and they've been waiting. It's like there's various groups who are interested in that part of the world for various reasons, and they've definitely found a home there, and it's getting bigger every day. So I'm happy with this. It's really good.
Well, Mike, thank you very much for sharing today.
Thank you, Paul, for giving me the opportunity to do it and being great. Thank you. It's been great.